Wait. No, I'm just kidding.
Hello, this is Thread Insights weekly group discussion. And looks like I'm running it. So I'm going to start with the agenda, follow up from previous discussions. What a coincidence. Everything is my own entry. I thought it would be a good idea to just make sure we got the right things in the 13.3 and that we're not missing any refinements. So let me share my screen. So this was one that wasn't refined. And I think Daniel might have had it. And now it does have a weight. Amazing. And does it have a implementation plan? It does.
And just to add, this looks a little different than the other issues because it's acting both as the feature issue and the implementation issue because the front-end team decided it didn't require more than one implementation issue to get all this done. And
then Thiago got lazy and decided that it wasn't worth creating an implementation issue just for a single item.
So Alexander, is that correct? Is that I didn't want to, it's more of a question than a statement. I just wanted to make sure that that was what you guys all decided.
Yes. Yeah. Daniel first pointed out that all the implementation things sort of need to happen sequentially. And so it didn't make sense to split it up into like more blocking issues. So blocked issues. So
Matt, do you want to stay assigned to this?
No, I probably don't need to. Also, yeah, is that the right workflow label?
Wrong label.
I mean, you can do it, Matt. I'll allow it.
I just typically, I think the assignees is usually if there's an action for that person to do on that particular issue. So I don't know. I usually unassign myself if there's not anything for me to do, unless you want to let me write code, which you do.
With the new process, does Andy need to stay assigned to anything except the closed design issue at this point?
That is a good.
I think so. There was the last time I unassigned him, there was gently informed, and now I need to stay assigned to these.
So we may want to check with him because I know we also had a problem as we started to break things down further in the past that we want to be very careful about what we put the UX label on and what we keep assigned to him. So at the very least, the high level MVCs, the feature issues, I don't know of all of those, but we'll figure out that with him.
This is one that's with Savash. He probably hasn't had time to go there yet. We are looking to move this to 13.3, so I'll do that now.
Thiago, I actually moved it to 13.
You did?
4, just because I think, so this is the work that's going to extend into actually redoing all of the vulnerability list components.
Okay.
And we haven't tackled that yet for the project level. So I think if we can refine these now, that's fantastic, but I don't expect this one and the other related one for 13.
No, it's not crucial. We can refine it asynchronously.
And I did talk to Savash about that issue this morning, and I think in the future, we want to figure out what the right minimum level of information that we should be putting in the implementation issues, because he had to do a lot of digging to figure out what exactly he was refining.
Okay, let's take this one offline. I'm interested in knowing what we can do to make it easier. Maybe that's the whole point. It is meant to be a little bit of work. So it sounds like you moved this one as well, Matt?
Yes, because this one is actually moving to tab-based filters. So this is more fundamentally restructuring the vulnerability list or the report page itself. And this was something that I saw for doing in 13.4, starting with the project level and then rolling it up through the group in the instance once they're split out into separate pages.
So moving on then. Moving on to the instance dashboard issues. That one is still in 13.3. And what do we do? Do we ping Daniel or do we try to?
So I'm trying not to talk too much. So I think,
It's
high
impossible,
level.
Lindsay. Just
I
do
know
it.
it's really hard for me.
Just,
I chatted with Matt about this. And so from a high level in 13.3, we want to do the restructuring of the pages. We want to split all of the dashboards into the 2 separate pages and make whatever changes we need to make. I'm a little unclear on the project one, but this is instance. So Daniel has a lot of stuff assigned to him for refinement right now. I'm sure he's going to get to it and we'll get a weight on it. But given that we have de-scoped the report updates until 13.4 and we're really focused on this type of work, which is creating that left-hand navigation and moving things into 2 pages. I mean, I'm comfortable with us putting this in 13.3 now without having the full refinement done.
yeah, it's already there. I think that's what's going to happen by default, unless we pop it out. But yeah, I'm happy.
But just to
leaving
be
it there as well.
for everyone else on the call, that's sort of the theme of 13.3, at least from the front end perspective, it appears, and I could be missing. I know there's some stuff that's a work in progress that got rolled over from 13.2, but our big focus is bringing this consistency to the dashboards and changing the navigation to make them separate pages from the reports.
Correct. That is the theme, not that fake theme I previously posted on Slack. Next one down. This one has an implementation plan, but it's still waiting on a wait. And for some reasons in 13.4, was this changed as well?
No, I actually.
Or I never moved it to 13.3. Should I?
If we think that there's capacity, yeah, I think it would be great. That first one is really the only thing that I would say I would push really strongly for, since it actually establishes the new left-hand navigation. So that would be a great first increment. This is just kind of continuing to iterate forward.
Cool.
I'll take as much as you'll give me in 13.3.
Well, we're not talking about deliverable labels yet, so don't get too excited.
And then, yeah, same for this one. If we want to put it towards the bottom for 13.3, I think that's great. It can certainly roll into a second release or next release.
All right, Lindsay, it's a front end one. What would you prefer?
This to me falls into the same. I mean, I'm looking at Alexander. I know that there's been some conversation about this today. Sorry, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but does this fall into that same work around, splitting up the dashboards and to 2 pages and unifying them in 13.3? That's how I viewed this, because we've already got this edit page for the instance dashboard. We'll be splitting the widgets and the report into 2 different pages. So this is a 3rd page on top of that.
Yeah, this one I don't care so much about because the edit button doesn't take up any real estate from the vulnerability list, which is the #1 thing I care about, is getting the vulnerability list looking the same on all 3 pages so we can start making the changes to it that propagate to all 3 of them without having to toggle stuff on and off. And this one, the edit button sits above it. I don't care when this one happens, really, but it's gotta happen after. Well, it doesn't have to. I don't know. I don't care where this goes.
Let's do this. I'll leave it 13.3. At least until he has a weight, and if it's looking a little bit too heavy, Lindsay, you and I can kick it out mid iteration.
Yeah, Alexander, I don't know if it makes a difference technically, but I would say that this was also the 3rd priority of the 3 too. Yeah, for the instance level, since we're just making a new separate area for that edit button to, can go away and everything ends up there.
Yeah.
Wayne, would you like to verbalize your question while I get some screens ready?
Sure. So appreciate Matt and everyone humoring me on this as I kind of look across metrics and things. So I didn't know, but that's okay. The good thing is that Tiago and Lindsay and Matt and others knew that we were intentionally focusing on tech debt for the last couple of releases and small UI enhancements. But you 3 were on the same page. Yay. I missed that detail, but that's if 3 people need to be on the same page, it's you 3. So what I want to understand is what, and and I don't disagree with that at all. All right, and that's your decision of you three. What I'm trying to figure out is what's planned next, and understand that. So I went to the epics. That's not necessarily a great way to do it. I noticed like the container security team has like a planning issue that has just like lists of things in it. I don't know if that's a better way. It's just a different way. So how do I determine what's next? What are the next priorities for the team? Why don't we start there?
So, good question. Does anybody want to take it, or should I start? I'll start. Lindsay's looking.
I was going to nominate Matt.
sideways.
That feels like, I'm sorry, to me that seems like a big question for Matt.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think I'll start with, I need to do a better job of sort of figuring out a good way to present something a little longer term. It definitely is more release to release feeling than it should be. I have not figured out a great way in our tool to actually have a good, solid roadmap view. So the list that you pointed to, Wayne, right below that under epics, there is a roadmap tab. You can apply the same sort of filters to it. It's okay. It's not,
Okay.
yes, this is sort of it. I have not really been doing a lot with the start date and the due date on things. I need to reorganize that a little bit more at a high level. This may be the best way to kind of see it.
You do already have those epics going from minimum to viable and viable to lovable. And I mean, those are pretty well fleshed out at this point.
Yeah, it's just not as, first of all, I think part of the challenge is it's not linear. Since you can only have a one-to-one relationship with issues in epics, it's not always going to be, we're only working within this particular epic for the next 3 iterations. I think it just doesn't make sense to work that way. So it's going to be a little bit more of a collection of certain things. And as you can see here, like we're kind of out of order because it made sense to tackle these earlier than later. I guess I probably should move those around.
Yeah, so the reality is a bit more like this. This one is at the top.
Whoa, hold on, please don't do that.
Don't do that? Oh, all right. But we're working on this right now. Why wouldn't this be at the top?
Right,
No,
and to Tiago's point, that would be a great way to get to view that, you know, is that not your priority?
We can potentially move things around that way. I guess I'm just really sensitive to the list because, first of all, I do not like the way that this interaction works. You can accidentally nest things and it could screw up some of the other stuff inside when you move them around. It doesn't do anything with the dates though. So it's that the start date and the due date, I think, is what needs to be a little bit more reflective of that. I guess the answer is I don't have a great answer, honestly, Wayne. I've kind of struggled with how the tool organizes things, and okay, I would be open to suggestions for how I can lay this out.
And I do care about how the tool works with it. I care more, or however, I care about more what it is than, which I know those are two related questions. So I guess, does this have all the things we want to do by January? Does this Epic 3308 have that?
It probably has a lot more than that in there.
Okay.
To be honest, I think there are going to be things that need to come out of there. There are things that I add in as we get suggestions that seem relevant, I think, to the...
But for everything, at least for everything you planned for the rest of the fiscal year, this is a subset of that. Knowing that there's if I'm understanding, there's also an unknown of we get feedback from customers, from users, et cetera, and of course plans change. So, you know, taking that aside of the unknown, which we have known unknowns of things like that, this is what we want to do to get, this is more than what we want to do to get to the next level of maturity for vulnerability management. There's some extra things in here. Is that all accurate?
Yes, I'd say that's a fair capture.
Okay.
And then what I think might be a little bit helpful, and I've considered doing this, the two main themes are basically starting to add some of the risk-based elements, because right now we're really only severity focused. That, and then the rest of this is really just sort of foundational UI, UX improvements, making the tool usable. Those are kind of the two big items. Putting some bounding boxes in terms of the dates on that
Mm-hmm.
I think will help make it a little bit more clear how we're working towards some of these.
Okay. And it's me. So the reason I'm asking is I want to know and, just think out further, to January and beyond, like, how do we feel about how we're, about getting to where we want to get, et cetera. And also just make sure I understand. I understood it at a high level when we talked about it last couple months ago, maybe 2 months ago. Now I can look at more detail. So this gives me a good place to start. As long as Matt, you and the development teams are on the same page on what should be next and what the priorities are, I'm happy. Wayne, knowing that in all the details, not as important. I want to get a feel for it, kind of a medium distance from it, where you folks are in the details all the time. So I'll review this, and I think if you could make it so that the things that are active are showing as active now, and the things that we haven't started, maybe they don't show exactly when you're thinking they will start, but they don't show now. That would help.
I don't quite follow the last part.
So if you go to the roadmap tab, Tiago, please. So it shows everything in flight. Well, everything except for the last item in flight.
Oh,
Right?
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could change change the start date of things that are not in flight yet to sometime out in the future, then because I'll look at those things first. I want to understand what's in flight, what's next, and what's after, kind of in that order. That'd be very helpful.
I can certainly do that.
Okay.
I'll say with a big caveat of, as we've gotten further in the user research, a lot of this is sort of moving around. This was more like a collection, best guess at the time, as opposed to say a well-researched sequenced plan, which is why I didn't put too much stock in the dates. But I think we're getting to the point where
I'd say best effort, and knowing that it's going to change. If you could maybe spend, half an hour, or definitely not more than an hour on it, just doing a quick review and update, that'd be great. It'd be very helpful.
Sure.
Cool.
And Matt, I'll let you drag this thing back to its place. I'm not afraid of dropping it in the wrong spot and messing it all up. Lindsay and I were talking about this yesterday, Wayne. It's very apropos. We were having the same question. Not everybody loves the priority issue. I found it super useful, but yeah, it's a bit of a hack and it's not for everyone. So we'll work with Matt.
What about a mid-range solution though? I think what I feel like I'm missing too is what we're working on in the current iteration, pretty straightforward. And then you can kind of look out to what's gotten pushed to the next iteration. And then if you look from a really high level, it's easy to see this as like a big collection of stuff. It is that sort of, what are we going to do over the next quarter-ish view that I'm wondering. Sorry, go ahead,
I think
Lindsay.
that last view that Tiago had up really is the best one that I've seen so far, that allows us to see, not this one, go back one more.
Yeah, it was terrible.
And if we can use this
That
to
was horrible.
if we could use this as a source of truth with at least some confidence that the relative priorities are set, you can expand these and see what milestone things are in. We could decide to start making use of the health tracker, right? The on status at risk and done. I mean, I'm sure the roadmap is also as useful, but I would love to use our product, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think easier than setting dates and changing them is reordering this. But then, as Matt said, he probably needs to be the only person doing this. So it's, if we need to change an order of something high level like that, it needs to be with his permission
100%.
or at least knowledge. Yeah.
No, I would expect you to be the only one that does it.
Oh, I'm everywhere. If you don't tell me not to do it, I'm dangerous.
Just
All right.
switching gears a little bit.
That's true.
I can certainly do that then, make sure that what is in that view, and I'll always refer people back to it. So I've kind of got everything laid out for the viable and then the complete plan inside of there. You're going to see things changing around, but I'd say over the last month, it's stabilized a lot more. It's more like individual issues and smaller feature requests and tweaks as opposed to like big chunks of work.
Switching gears a bit, I didn't put this in the notes. Sorry, we're going to move on or more on this?
I was going to say, yeah, I was going to suggest we move on. We've only got a couple minutes.
All right. So I've been using our standalone vulnerability features as for for a set of open source projects I've been looking at, and it worked pretty well. So I was kind of testing the secure team, the rest of the secure team's features of scanning code for vulnerabilities and for secrets and things like that, and then looking at the vulnerabilities and the the package dependency stuff. And that's actually how I noticed yesterday that bug that got introduced is I was seeing no vulnerabilities. It was because of the bug, actually, not because there were no vulnerabilities, that the bug that's since been fixed. It's been actually a pretty cool experience. Things work pretty well. So I just want to pass that on to the team. I do have some, I'm still thinking about some feedback on some potential improvements. I wouldn't say they're bugs, just more, I've kind of saw it this way and I have this idea, you know, on this kind of thing. So, but overall, it worked well. And Alexander, I told you something earlier that actually is not true. The dependency stuff, I was wrong about that. It does show up as vulnerability. So the package dependency shows up as a separate list. They also show up as vulnerabilities. I was seeing no vulnerabilities because of the vulnerability bug, not because they weren't showing up. So I've been using both sides, both the vulnerability dashboards, the individual vulnerabilities, creating an issue out of something. And then I know we're not working on the package dependency list that has vulnerabilities, that functionality yet, but I used that as well. And so far so good. So just wanted to pass that on. I'm trying to dog food it myself as well, and it's neat stuff. Job well done.
Wait,
That's
so that
awesome.
means we have the dependency scanning vulnerabilities in the vulnerability list as well as in their separate.
Yeah, it's presented in a different way.
Okay.
The dependency list gives you things that it found that don't have any security issues. It gives you, which is useful too. Like what packages are using whether they had vulnerability issues or not. It also actually gives you the license, like which open source license, which is very useful to some companies. Like they want to make sure they're only using certain kinds of licenses and not other types. So anyway.
Oh.
Cool. What do you have to demo, Alexander?
Oh, I just added the vendor to the scanner column in both the pipeline security tab as well as the project security dashboard. So now if it's from GitLab, like the DAS or SAS scanner, then it says GitLab underneath it. If there's a custom scanner, it will say whatever they have configured in their custom scanner YAML file or whatever.
It looks nice. Does it wrap around if we make a very long scanner name?
Yeah, it does.
Cool. Anything else on the demo? Noting that we are sort of out of time.
No.
Excellent.
Can we hop back up? Alexander, it looks like you had started typing a question around the user research. I'd love to hear more about that. That's a great question and a great point. I know we did the sort of strategy review session a couple months ago. It seems like I want to make sure that I'm not over presenting information that's not useful, but at the same time, I know that there are a lot of things that I may have access to or sort of be involved with that the team doesn't always get to hear. So I think that would be fantastic to probably have Andy do it since he talks the words good and understood it. But to summarize, like what we found as part of the study, kind of outline what we think we're going to do with those findings. Yeah,
I'd love to see that as well. If it's recorded or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll set up a separate session for that with the team, and then of course we'll record it. But I think that'd be a great chance to have an interactive discussion around what actually came out of that, because we've actually got two different related studies.
Did they say they wanted Threat Insights to be part of the defend stage?
You know, they did not. Sadly, most of the people were like, "What's a GitLab? Not familiar."
Baby steps. All right, everyone. If that's it, anything else? No? Have a lovely day or evening, wherever you are. See you next time.
Bye.